should not keep talking about coming up with more clean air action plans. We have had enough planning. What now we require are annual report cards on where do you stand on the implementation of the plan. And that report card has to therefore catalyze certain practices, which means that what my clean air action plan requires me to do in different sectors of intervention, there I need to align my annual departmental budget with what I need to do for clean air. I need to come up with the right, if it's an urban design solution or a technology solution, then I need to define that at what scale am I going to implement that. So first and then create the standard operating procedure, management information system, monitoring and reporting a strategy for compliance.
So thank you so much for joining me. It's such a pleasure to have Anumita Roychowdhury, Executive Director of the Center for Science and Environment and a leading authority on what's wrong with the air in this country, especially Delhi. Anumita, thank you so much. I know you have a very, very busy time, so we'll make it quick. But whatever you say always makes such an impact. I want to ask you, we go through the same round of questions every year, especially around this time of the year. Yet we don't seem to have any impact when it comes to the government. They seem to resort to emergency, quick fix measures rather than something substantive and long term. Why is that so? Why is there such a lack of understanding on really the toxicity that people are breathing?
First of all, it is very important for us to understand that has been quite a long drawn battle. And so something that had begun originally as a public campaign in Delhi, and at that point of time, and I'm talking about 20 years ago, when the whole understanding was as if Delhi was the problem, okay? And for a long time, we kept saying that and we kept our attention there. But over a period of time, and what is interesting is that whole approach to air pollution has evolved in such a way that while a lot of local action in Delhi, which was driven a lot by the judiciary, by the public campaigns, which had catalyzed several action in Delhi, but with a national spin-off at the same time. But what we could not do, we could not stay consistent with our interventions, and we could not stay consistent with interventions that are needed for more systemic and infrastructure level changes that are needed for more sustained improvement in air quality. So when you see essentially what is air pollution, it is the whole, the whole dirty air that is coming out because of intense increase, or rather I would say with urban growth, with industrialization, with rising number of vehicles, with more consumption in our cities. We are also generating a lot more waste, and then the waste gets burned. So it's a manifestation of all of that. So therefore, to be able to be ready with a strategy that can help to address all of these at a scale, that's where we have failed. So as a result, so if I give you the example of Delhi today, now a lot has also happened in Delhi. Now, for instance, Delhi is the only city that has shut down all its coal power plants. Its entire public transport, its local commercial transport has moved out of diesel and running on natural gas. It's phasing out its old vehicles. All the dirty industrial fuels like coal, petcoke, furnace oil have all been banned in Delhi. Now, these are not small measures. Now, because Delhi has done this, we have also seen that over a period of time, the overall ambient air quality trend, that is downward and that has bent. But the question is that even after doing all of that, where we are today, that requires another 60% reduction to be able to meet the clean air standard. Now imagine that what is the scale of change that is needed to give us that kind of a cut. Now, for that, now this is where it actually answers your question that why the governments never seem ready with what we really need to do. And this is where the whole issue is that increasingly what we are seeing that the policy attention getting more focused on temporary measures, small measures, emergency action, but not the round the year action that is needed for scale and speed of change that is needed.
And what would this round the year action look like?
So if I just put them in 3-4 buckets of what those actions are needed and what kind of strategies are needed. One clearly is massive energy transition, which means we have to get rid of dirty, toxic fuel from industry, from vehicles, and from households. So which means as far as vehicles are concerned, they simply need to move out of diesel and petrol, and we need to have electric zero-emission vehicles. At the same time, in industry, you need to put all your industrial processes on electricity and then have clean electricity and not use the dirty fuel and dirty technology as much as possible. And second is the mobility transition. So we need to travel more, but how we travel will make a difference. So you really need to reduce dependence on personal vehicle, but that is possible only if you have upscaled integrated public transport services with walking and cycling infrastructure, with restraints on personal vehicle usage. That requires a whole new generation of strategies. And the third big area of intervention is circularity. So because of our consumption and infrastructure development, huge amount of waste that we are generating and different streams of waste that we are generating is because they are available in the open. So a lot of that municipal waste, for instance, get burned. That contribute hugely to the pollution. Or waste from construction sector that are dumped in the open that contribute hugely to the pollution. Now, if you are able to develop a circular economy where you don't throw away the waste, but you recover material and resources out of the waste and reuse this, and also your landfills where you have thrown and created mountain of waste, you need to remediate that. You have to utilize that waste maybe for road building, maybe for something else. So these are the broad areas of interventions that will have to be implemented. So then the question is, so therefore the governments need to tie up resources, have a clear plan that how are they going to roll out that round the year action that we are talking about.
When you say it, Anumita, it seems so simple and so clear and so concise. Why, despite so much intervention from civil society, from even some private enterprises, why has nothing really materialized?
So what's happening is very interesting today. If you really look at the crossroads where we are today in India, it's, as I'm saying, that it's not that nothing is happening. In fact, we have very recently, we have tried to document that where are the emerging good practices? Must be something surely happening. Because in all sectors, so much of funds coming in, so much of new policies, programs have taken shape. So what are we really seeing? Well, that's really interesting. So there are cities where you will find that in all these different sectors of transport, industry, waste management, several cities are doing pretty good. And they have taken innovative approaches, they have demonstrated change, they have created infrastructure, shown impact. But despite that, we are seeing that there's a very little demonstration effect. We are not seeing scalability, we are not seeing replicability, and we are not seeing any model that will ensure that what the good practices are and what our policies are asking for, that they are actually getting implemented and adopted. Now, for instance, I'll give you the example. Today, Delhi is in a very bad shape as far as pollution is concerned. Now, let's take the vehicles. Because the vehicles today are the most important, the top contributor to Delhi's air pollution. But why? Because, as I said just now, Delhi has done CNG program, it has improved in emission standards, phased out old vehicles, there are restrictions on truck entry in Delhi, there are disincentives for diesel vehicles, and yet while the vehicles are still the big problem. Simple reason is, whatever little that we could achieve with improvement in technology, we have lost all of that because the sheer numbers of vehicles have swamped the gains. So imagine a city with 1.5 crore vehicle and adding about 7.2 lakh every year. That is the rate at which the numbers are growing. And this is happening because, and that's where the big gap is, even though in this country, we have got the National Urban Transport Policy, Transit-Oriented Development Policy, essentially asking governments that you invest more in transit, in public transport, you build up the scale for walking, cycling, and yet when we look at the transport sector spending today, you will find that the lion's share of the most funds are going to build more roads, widen the road, flyovers, taking space away from footpath, essentially for the convenience of car, not for the people. So it is not, therefore, despite having policies, despite having the schemes in place, we are still not being able to change the conventional, traditional, old priorities, which are actually at cross purpose with what is needed and intended for clean air. So this means it's not a dearth of resources, but how are we spending it is making a difference. So if we can take the same fund out of the flyover and build a transit line, bring more buses, make more footpaths, that will give us the sustained gains. And that's where the interventions need to be today. You're on silent, Kaveri.
And as you said, it's not that other cities have not done it. We've seen cities like Bhubaneswar, for instance, investing in public buses and EV buses, So it is happening, as you said, in other areas, in other cities. Why are we not learning those lessons when they're so obviously staring us in the face?
Absolutely. That puzzles me the most. Just to give you an example, today let's take cities like, say, Indore. Okay? Now that city has been able to achieve 100% segregation of municipal waste. It is now generating compressed biogas from the kitchen waste, the wet waste, and running buses with that thing. And in fact, since 2021, no waste burning incident has been reported in that city. Now, if we already have that model working in this country, then why other cities are not going for that model? Why Delhi? Today, for instance, I'm told that almost 30% of Delhi's population live in the informal settlements. And the informal settlements are outside the formal municipal collection system. Now, you cannot ignore people and their waste like that just by creating this artificial silo of formality and informality. Because if though 30% population is generating waste, you require systems to collect that waste. Now, if you do not collect that waste, then that means it is going to accumulate in the open and people are going to burn it to dispose of that waste. So why can't we, some other city can do it, right? And they come up with a good system. Then why the capital city cannot do this? Again, if the same waste, if Indore is generating compressed biogas from the waste to run buses, then why Delhi is setting up waste to energy plants without waste segregation, and as a result, the waste to energy plant also cause more pollution. So somewhere we are seeing a big disconnect between the learning, the wisdom, and also the good practices that are already happening in the city. Somehow it is not being able to inform everyone, and they are not getting a good buy-in of what needs to happen.
What can we do about that? Because can we somehow involve the private sector more? I think the public, the civil society is already quite integrated into this idea and has bought into this idea of clean air. Is it a problem of creating a proper public-private partnership with the government and sort of making them understand that this is a priority, voting governments out if they cannot give you a basic right like clean air?
Very right. Now, the thing is, how should that work? Now, I will talk
Exactly.
about, we need to address this at two levels. Let's first look at the public sector, the government sector itself. Here, my first ask will be that every year, please do not keep talking about coming up with more clean air action plans. We have had enough planning. What now we require are annual report cards on where do you stand on the implementation of the plan. And that report card has to therefore catalyze certain practices, which means that what my clean air action plan requires me to do in different sectors of intervention, there I need to align my annual departmental budget with what I need to do for clean air. I need to come up with the right, if it's an urban design solution or a technology solution, then I need to define that at what scale am I going to implement that. So first and then create the standard operating procedure, management information system, monitoring and reporting strategy for compliance. So all of that needs to happen in the public sector. Second, keeping in mind that going forward, massive investments that are needed in different sectors for pollution control, whether that is for industrial pollution, waste, or transport. We know that the industry will be investing in the solutions, but to ensure that you are directing and channelizing the private investment in the right direction, regulatory mandate will have to be put in place. So therefore, if we agree that electrification of vehicles is an important step forward because we require zero emission vehicles in our cities, in that case, there has to be a regulatory mandate to the industry. How are they going to upscale their production and sales of electrification? You should have procurement mandate, say for the bus agencies to say, okay, my future buses are going to be only electric, or the aggregators, your Uber and the Olas, the taxi aggregators and the delivery, give them the target that how can they. So what the private sector will bring money and investment, but to ensure that they are investing in the right solution, for that you need to give them a regulatory mandate. So regulations have a big role to play. And then the third thing for the private sector is also you have to then tell them that what are the no-go areas and what are the things that they should do properly. So if the private sector, suppose, is building roads, then they should not focus only on the carriageway for the vehicle, but they should also be given the mandate of creating the footpath, the way that needs to be designed, that there are proper crossings for people, that, so that is where we need to be. That how do you inform decision? How do you inform investments?
People are doing enough. I mean, they're already joking. They're demanding better air. What more can civil society do?
So that's always a question we have, that, what can I do at my personal level?
Right.
So that also has to be understood. One, of course, there is a whole safeguard that you need to understand because you are exposed to pollution. So what can you do to reduce your exposure? So when you have very high pollution days, how can you understand that to know that when you should venture out of your home, when you should try and reduce your exposure? That is a personal safeguard. That's one thing. But the more important is that how my individual decision making of what I do can help. So if I can take a decision that within my 1 kilometer radius of where I stay, if I have small errands to do, can I just walk, cycle instead of taking my car out all the time? Can I reduce my car trips by pooling or by taking the metro? So there are a lot of the series of decision making that we can do. I can try and also utilize my kitchen waste in a way to compost and not throw it and not give it to the municipality. So these are something that I can do individually. But I can also play a societal role. Now, I live in a neighborhood, and if there is a construction happening in your neighborhood, then you should also try and go for a community vigilance to ensure that that construction site is fully covered and they have adopted all the right dust control measures. You can also, through community surveillance, ensure that nobody is burning waste in your neighborhood, right? If there are unpaved roads, make a demand that the government should pave it properly. So there is something of that societal and the community role that you can play. But having said all that, we also need to keep in mind that individually also I need to be enabled. I may want to take public transport, but if government has not provided me the reliable service, right, that I get my bus on time, I can reach my metro station on time, somewhere we also have to create our demand, and make our demand become a lot more shrill, lot more loud. What is happening today? A lot more people are certainly talking about the problem of air pollution, right? But I think we also now need to deepen the understanding of what solutions mean, and therefore try all your communication channels, your engagement platforms to demand for that solution. Because at the end of the day, again, you need to change the policy, but that is possible if you change the politics. So, and the politics will change when the public demand gets a lot more shrill about the right things.
Absolutely. Anumita, you've been doing this for so long now, and you've also worked in other countries. Are there any lessons for Delhi or India from anything that you've learned from all the work you've done everywhere?
Absolutely. Kaveri, it is so encouraging when I go to Africa, okay?
And people have a lot in Africa, right?
To work there as well. And sometimes people have the audacity to think that as if Africa has a lot to learn from us. But I stand corrected today. I mean, there is so much to learn from the way, and I've seen within few years how transformation is possible. Let me give you the example of Ethiopia, for instance. I'm just back from there. And, this is one country which no other country has done so far. They have banned the import of, because they don't produce their own vehicles, but they have banned import of petrol and diesel vehicles. Now only electric vehicles can be imported in that country. It's like almost going 100% electric. You go to their capital city, which is Addis Ababa, you will be impressed by the network of the footpath and the public spaces they have completely redesigned. In Bombay and Delhi, people redesign 1 kilometer of road and we start tom-tomming that as, wow, such a great thing has happened. They are transforming their entire road network. And to walk on a footpath that is 4 to 6 meters wide, that you have not given away to the carriageway for the cars. I mean, where does that attitude and understanding comes from? It's the same government that is doing it, and where their government is doing to prioritize road building infrastructure and spending to this infrastructure for people, right? So that's the kind of changes we are seeing. There is Senegal, you go there, the Dakar, where they have a few hundred, not just 20, 30, but they have the more large network of bus rapid transit system, where they have created these bus corridors for only the buses to run. Now imagine, it is not only that they have buses at such large corridors only dedicated to buses, but all the buses running on that corridor are electric. Now that sounds like a developed country paradigm, but it's happening there. Now, so therefore, it's very exciting to understand these emerging good practices in the global South. Earlier, we always thought, okay, the South will always stay behind. We have to look at the developed North to understand how to move forward. But so much of innovation, new approaches are happening in the global South. The South learning and cross-learning has now become absolutely critical. So that's very encouraging because we have all the common challenges of poverty, the slow economic growth, but despite all of that, to be able to take courageous decisions, redraw the blueprint of development, do things differently, that is our opportunity. The reason I'm saying this is, Kaveri, just keep in mind, the opportunity in the developing countries like India or Africa. In the developed countries, US, Europe, they have already built their city, and it's all built. Now, whatever they do in the future, they will be retrofitting. They will be just incrementally adding. But a lot of our development is still in the future. The lot of new construction is still in the future for us. In fact, all the cities that will be built in India by 2030 have not yet been built. So that is our opportunity. Either if we do that wrong, then we are going to be in serious trouble. But if we do it right, then it is an opportunity to leapfrog.
It's so wonderful to listen to you, Anumita. There's so much to learn from you. And I know that people listen to you. I wish they listened to you much more, especially those in government. But I'm sure that they will get the message sooner or later if we all have to survive. Thank you so much, Anumita. I know you're very busy. I'll let you get back to your work. But thank you very much. There's so much that you told us today, which is of so much use. Thank you.